gunshot wounds. Mississauga and Markham just say no to hosting retail cannabis stores. And
when we unveiled it last year, it dropped scientists' jaws.
A sneak peek at the ROM's newest exhibit, 76 million years in the making. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. Toronto police are on the scene of what could be the city's 93rd homicide of the year. Around 6:30 tonight, police found a car that had crashed into a tree just north of Dixon and Islington. Inside, they found a man they believe had been shot. He died shortly afterwards. Let's go now live to our Taylor Simmons, who's live on the scene with the latest. So, Taylor, investigators are still trying to determine what happened.
That's right, Mike. So this investigation is definitely still ongoing. The intersection's going to be closed for most of the night. And as you can see, the vehicle at the center of all this is still sitting here with the blinkers on right behind me. We've seen lots of police cars here throughout the night, paramedics, the K9 unit, forensic investigators, people getting off buses in the area, just looking around shocked at this happening in their neighborhood. So to bring you back to how this all got started, police got a call just before 6:30 this evening alerting them to this vehicle off the road. They arrived to find a man with gunshot wounds, and paramedics were on scene. They tried to resuscitate him, but they were unsuccessful, and he died on scene here tonight. So whether those gunshot wounds happened before he got into the car, while he was driving, we're not sure, but just from this vantage point, it doesn't look like you can see any type of gun activity on the outside of the car. We know he was the only person in the car, and the homicide unit is now investigating. We couldn't reach them for a comment tonight, but clearly investigation is still ongoing. And as always, they're asking anyone who is in the neighborhood who may have any information, saw something, heard something, has any video surveillance tape to share with them. They want to hear from you, Mike.
Okay, thanks for the update there, Taylor. Taylor Simmons reporting live from Etobicoke tonight. Well, Mississauga and Markham deciding today to not allow brick and mortar cannabis stores within their boundaries. Councillors in both cities voting to opt out of hosting privately operated retail cannabis stores, which are expected to open across the province starting in April. Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie says the city feels there are too many unanswered questions about private cannabis stores. And she says the province has not given municipalities enough control over where the shops would be located. She says Mississauga may choose to opt in at a later date, but wants to consult further with the community. In Markham, councillors voted 12-1 to keep the stores out of that city. We caught up with that one lone councillor who voted in favor of the stores.
I think marijuana should be regulated and available for sale just in the same manner that tobacco and liquor is. In terms of the black market or the gray market, whatever you want to call it, I think having storefronts will actually help suppress the market. I'm not enough of, I'm not naive enough to imagine that having it available in retail stores is going to eliminate the black market entirely.
Now, as for Toronto, City Council will be speaking about this tomorrow. The city manager is recommending Toronto go ahead and allow private retailers. St. Michael's College School says it is canceling a number of sports programs. The move comes a month after police launched an investigation into allegations of assault and sexual assault by students. In a note to parents this afternoon, the school says that in light of Welcome back. Technical problem there. My mic pack went dead, so we took a little break while we went to a backup system. Continuing with our newscast, a warrant has been issued for a suspect in an incident last week that caused a 5-hour lockdown at Western Technical Commercial School. Police say 18-year-old Joshua Hastings should be considered armed and dangerous. Police allege he threatened a student with a firearm. Western Tech and another school went into lockdown Thursday after a student reported seeing a man with a gun. Now, at the time, police said they were looking for a former student. And the controversy over Premier Doug Ford's choice to head the OPP keeps ramping up. And the current police commissioner is alleging that Ford's top aide ordered a customized camper van for the Premier and then told police to hide the costs. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has the details.
The Ontario Provincial Police are fortunate.
Brad Blair is the top police officer in Ontario right now. He's interim OPP commissioner, a 32-year veteran, and the latest allegations about Premier Doug Ford come from him. Blair wants an investigation into Ford's move to appoint his friend Ron Taverner to be the new OPP boss. Blair says it raises doubts about the force's political independence and undermines public trust in the OPP. The bombshell in Blair's 9-page letter to the Ombudsman, he says the Premier's Chief of Staff, Dean French, told the OPP to buy a large camper-type vehicle and modify it to the Premier's specifications. French then asked that the costs of the vehicle be kept off the books.
It's a bad episode of Pimp My Ride and hiding it from the books.
Taverner is defending the Premier's new ride. I am told it's not a camper van, but an extended size van. The Toronto Police Superintendent told the Toronto Sun he's a big guy and it would have more room to work while he's on the road.
I feel strongly that Mr. Ford, and specifically Mr. Taverner, should come forward and ask for a delay in his appointment to clear his name.
What does Ford have to say to all this? His staff blocked journalists from getting near him today at a conference in a Toronto hotel. He mentioned not a word of the controversy in his 10-minute speech, then left through a back door on the other side of the ballroom. That launched a game of cat and mouse through the hotel and outside as reporters and photographers tried to find the Premier. After using 2 of his OPP cars as decoys, Ford's team drove him away in a third.
When you're the Premier of the province and you're running and hiding from the media, it means you have something to hide from. It means you've got some guilt there and you're trying to avoid fessing up.
The OPP controversy is coming to a head. That's because Ron Taverner is due to be sworn in on Monday, and the current commissioner and the opposition say he should not take over the police force until an investigation into his appointment is complete. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
And CBC News has learned the Ford government is aiming to cut the size of the province's public service through voluntary departures. In a memo sent to 60,000 public sector workers this afternoon, the head of the Ontario Public Service said Cabinet has approved an extension to a voluntary early retirement program and a new expanded voluntary exit program. In the memo, Steve Orsini says the government is, quote, exploring measures to manage its compensation costs in a way that ensures vital services to citizens are not compromised while avoiding involuntary job losses. The current focus is on leveraging available programs that will allow employees to exit the organization on a voluntary basis. Colette Kennedy is away tonight, so Ian Black is here with your first look at the forecast. So, Ian, how are the next 12 hours shaping up?
Well, it's a pretty interesting pattern. If you like it mild, you're in luck, but got to get there first. That means some flurries overnight and at least a risk of seeing some patchy freezing drizzle. I don't think it's going to amount to all that much, but boy, you just don't want to mess around with it. So I am going to mention it. Flurries and perhaps a little bit of freezing drizzle. Now tomorrow we get above the freezing point. You're looking at just plain old drizzle, and there might be a shower early Friday. But with this milder pattern, it goes right on through the upcoming weekend, and it's a pretty quiet, storm-free period heading into. First of all, though, there are the flurries kicking around. A very weak little system here, which would normally just move by really quickly, but this high pressure is sort of holding it all back. It's kind of like a mountain of air. I mean, it was beautiful in eastern Ontario and Quebec today, lots of sunshine, cool. And here's that low, which is just going to spin across here with those flurries here overnight, okay? Quick look ahead. Tomorrow morning, look at those temperatures jumping up above the freezing point. You might see a spot of drizzle in there. The winds will pick up out of the south to southeast. Tomorrow, you might get the odd gust over 20. Your 7-day forecast is coming up in just a few minutes.
Okay, thanks, Ian. There's a legal case underway about what determines if someone is dead and who gets to make that decision. 3 appeal court judges are hearing the case of a Brampton mother who is on life support. She has been declared brain dead, but her heart is still beating. And as Lorenda Redekop explains, her family says it's her religious right to be kept alive.
Keisha, can you move for me?
In family video, Takesha McKitty's shoulder moves slightly. In others, her legs move. In another, it's a thumb. The 28-year-old mother is in intensive care following a drug overdose. She breathes through life support. But more than a year ago, doctors declared her dead, even completing a death certificate. Her father says she's alive.
We feel she still has brain activity. We feel she's still alive. We feel her spirit is still within her body.
This case isn't challenging whether she's neurologically dead or not. It's about the family's religious beliefs on what defines death.
When your heart stops, you die. We've never really even considered brain death as a form of death.
But inside court, lawyers on the other side say a lower court made the right decision when it sided with the doctor who declared McKitty dead. He attributes her movements to spinal reflexes, not a sign of life. And his lawyers argue McKitty has no religious rights since she's no longer living. The McKitty family lawyer also represented an Orthodox Jewish man, making a similar argument. However, that man's heart later stopped. The legal case declared moot.
There's 2 ways of determining death in Ontario. One of them is when the heart stops beating and the person stops breathing. That's how we determine death for 90% of the people in our country.
The other way, he says, is when the brain stops. He wants religious beliefs taken into account for those cases. McKitty's father says this legal process has cost them around $400,000. The 3 appeal court judges are set to continue hearing arguments tomorrow. Some of Takesha McKitty's supporters say if those judges rule against them, they're willing to take this all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
I'm Nick Boisvert in downtown Brampton, where the city's new council has voted to bring back the controversial downtown LRT, but it could be coming with one pretty big change. We'll have that story coming up.
Well, Toronto City Council is set to debate the terms of any talks it will have with the province over plans to take over responsibility for the TTC's subway system. When council meets tomorrow, it will look at recommendations as to how the city should approach discussions with the province about uploading the subway system. The mayor saying today he wants to know what it will mean for TTC riders, staff, and of course finances, adding it doesn't make sense to take a position either way before getting more details on what the province is planning to do. And the mayor also announcing some key appointments for the new city council. Denzel Minun Wong will continue to serve as the city's statutory deputy mayor. 3 other councillors will take on other deputy mayor roles. They are Anna Bailau, who will handle the housing file. There's Michael Thompson, who will focus on jobs, and Stephen Holliday will concentrate on modernization and governance. Jay Robinson will serve as the new TTC chair, and Gary Crawford will stay on in his role as the city's budget chief. Brampton's City Council has voted to revive its downtown LRT plan. The light rail line was controversially stopped at Steeles Avenue back in 2015. Now, council's going back to its original plan, a route stretching from Port Credit to downtown Brampton, with one rather expensive adjustment. As Nick Boisvert tells us, the challenge now is to find the money for it.
Downtown Brampton has looked kind of like this for decades. That could change soon.
I think it would cause a lot of traffic destruction at first, obstruction, but I think in the long run it would really help reduce it because it's so busy around here.
I think it's important that the downtown corridor here have an LRT and transportation that connects both GO trains, so I'm very happy about that.
Despite strong public support, the previous city council voted to kill the downtown LRT 3 years ago. The line would have linked to the Hurontario main LRT that will soon open in Mississauga, and it was fully funded by the province. Today, council unanimously voted to reverse that decision, but it's not yet clear if Ontario will still pay for the line.
There's always disagreements, but I think when it comes to transit, I think we're all in agreement that we need to get something done.
New Mayor Patrick Brown says it's a sign of a more functional government.
I'm very pleased that this council has come to a compromise solution where we got all members of council to agree to the same plan. That's unheard of in Brampton.
The new plan looks a lot like the old one, but there could be one pretty significant change. The city's engineers are being asked to look at whether they could tunnel underneath the road here on Main Street in order to preserve some of the historic downtown. The city previously said that could cost around $500 million.
I think it's an expensive solution to it. I don't know that it's actually necessary. We've got to get shovels in the ground, though. It has to happen soon.
Brown doesn't dispute the cost, but regardless, he says it's the province that should cover it.
Allowing us to have a small portion that is tunneled still puts this project way under the other transit projects of comparable municipalities.
The cost numbers are expected in 2019. Nick Boisvert, CBC News, Brampton.
Government funding has dried up, and so did private investors. So what gives, and what's next for these upstarts? I'm Ali Chasson, and I'll have that story coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
If you watch any Dragon's Den, you know that entrepreneurs trying to bring a new food product to market certainly have their challenges. Well, now those in the GTA have even more. They're about to lose the area's only food incubator. It is a big industrial kitchen space where they can try out ideas, recipes, products. Ali Chasson has more.
When we met Food Starter, we had an opportunity to basically move into this giant fridge, which normally would be extremely expensive. So basically, this is a Yumba meal, healthy, well-balanced, chef-made meal, fraction of the sodium, and all our meals are about $11. And the only reason why we can sell them for that price is because we have a great lease with Food Starter.
Now that the incubator has run out of money, Yumba and over 100 startups like them
have just 8 days to literally take their business elsewhere.
Oh, this is almost a guarantee that half of these businesses will likely go under.
Food Starter is where for $30 an hour, people could bring their idea, get trained, and create their products from scratch in a fully licensed, full-scale facility. It's where Linda Chung's dream came true.
I was an accountant a long time ago. I had 2 kids with disabilities, so I stayed home with them. And the mission of our company is to create a business where kids on the autism spectrum could work. So it meant a lot to us to be here, and they offered support, they offered courses. They actually taught us quite a bit about how to work in a commercial kitchen. It's quite sad to see them have to close down like this because I think they didn't have the corporate or provincial support.
It costs a lot to do this. This is very different than tech entrepreneurship where you need a computer and a desk.
The City of Toronto and the province helped fund Food Starter since it opened 10 years ago. That funding lasted until September 2017.
And then we had a provincial election, things changed.
Now they're out of money. It's not just the new government they want help from. Food Starter's executive director feels the incubator's board of directors, which includes reps from big grocery store chains, should have ponied up more.
I'm not sure what it says about the food industry, but I think it's unusual for an incubator to have that much trouble finding private sector support.
The city hasn't completely pulled the plug, saying it will help the startup clients during this transition.
And you just got to start thinking next steps.
Last night, as soon as we found out, we were already in the car meeting with new kitchens.
So right now you're trying to fulfill your Christmas orders.
We're a dessert company, so this is actually the busiest time of year for us.
Any further funding, the city says, is contingent on Food Starter coming up with a better business plan. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Ian Black is back now with a full look at the forecast. Ian?
Okay, some flurries kicking around here overnight. I don't think it's going to amount to all that much, but give yourself a couple of extra minutes first thing tomorrow. I am going to mention the risk of some freezing drizzle. It's not going to be a lot, but boy, you don't want to mess around with that stuff because, you know, the problems freezing rain or freezing drizzle can give you. Well, here are some flurries kicking around the GTA tomorrow, pretty much out of the way fairly early in the day, changing over to perhaps a little plain old drizzle as the milder air works in here. But generally, you're just looking at a lot of clouds and a bit of a southerly breeze developing. Here comes Friday morning, and you can see some showers swinging on through here. Other than that, this is a storm-free, easy-to-take, mild-looking pattern moving forward. In terms of the wind, the easterly winds become more southerly, and I think that will pick up in the afternoon. In essence, you could get a gust that comes over 40 kilometers per hour out of the south tomorrow, but that's the sign of that warm air rushing on in here and pushing out any of the chill. Look at these high temperatures moving forward, okay, right on through the weekend. Typically, you get more clouds than sun when you see the milder air this time of year coming in here. And as I mentioned, a chance of some drizzle both tomorrow and on Friday. I can't completely rule it out on Saturday. You can keep your fingers crossed for some sunny breaks in here. Would be nice, wouldn't it? Temperatures drop back a little bit, but still nothing to complain about in what is a remarkable storm-free pattern that I see shaping up. Let's take a look at some photos. Beautiful shot here. Thanks to Phil for that. As a barred owl. And I was wondering what all that blue stuff was back in there, but it's actually Christmas lights when we took that shot. Neat. Beautiful looking bird. And a lovely looking fox, healthy too. Harry sent this one in. He says, the fox comes by every day and grabs a squirrel. That's taking up all his bird seed. He mentioned that his dog sort of barked and leapt after the fox. The fox dropped the squirrel, ran away, and the squirrel took off too, up a tree. Saved his life, I guess. That's your weather.
All right, thanks a lot, Ian. Welcome back. The newest exhibit at the ROM is 76 million years in the making. The public will get their first look at its new dinosaur exhibit on Saturday, but our cameras got a sneak peek today at a fossil named Zool.
So about 2 years, we've been dreaming of bringing this Zool to the public, and today we can.
When we unveiled it last year, it dropped scientists' jaws all across the globe. And the reason is it's complete from the tip of the nose to the tip of the tail, with all of the armor on its back in place, preserved as it would have been in life. And we have more than just the bones. We actually have the skin preserved over most of the body.
Incredible. It's taken, as I said, 2 years to put this exhibit together. The fossil was discovered earlier than that, back in 2014 in Montana. Now, it was named Zool because researchers thought it looked like a creature in the original Ghostbusters movie. It does. The ROM exhibit includes animation of a dinosaur fight, digital interactives, and even a retro-looking video game. Well, a Mississauga pilot is trying to break a record. Get this, he just turned 14 today.
When you're about 2,000 feet above in the air, it feels amazing.
That is Mohammed Faizi behind the controls. He is hoping to get up in the air this week in an attempt to become the youngest person ever to fly solo. Tried to set the record today, but the overcast weather left him grounded. Faizi caught the flying bug from his older sister, who is also a pilot. He's hoping to make flying his career.
I want to become a pilot when I grow up, and me being the youngest pilot in Canada to achieve solo, that would be very good for me.
Sure would. Faizi is hoping the weather will cooperate tomorrow or Friday. We will follow his story and let you know what happens. And happy birthday today. Well, our nation's capital is celebrating the holiday season with the decades-long tradition of a light show on Parliament Hill. We've got a time-lapse video of thousands of colorful lights creating a winter wonderland at Centre Block. The event is inspired by Canada's nature, climate, and culture. This will be the 34th edition of the show. It runs every night until January 7th, in case you happen to be traveling up to the nation's capital. Well, tomorrow on Q, Tessa Virtue and Scott Moir will be talking to host Ali Hassan about their new book and why they have never watched that Moulin Rouge performance that won them the ice dancing gold medal at the Winter Olympics. You can listen to that tomorrow morning starting at 10 a.m. on CBC Radio 1. That's your newscast for tonight. I'm away for a couple days. Talia Ricci's here tomorrow. Good night.